You're listening to a Pop House Network podcast for developers by developers.
Hello and welcome to Stack Podcast episode number 63, recorded on February 2nd, 2023. This is actually our first episode of 2023. We took January off kind of by accident, scheduling accident, I guess you could say. But welcome. My name is Kito Man, and I'm here with only one co-host today, very sadly, Daniel Hinojosa. Hey, Dan.
It doesn't have to be sad. I'm a really great co-host.
Oh, you are a great co-host. It's definitely true. Definitely true. Yeah. So, okay. So it's just full disclosure. I have COVID, so I seem to be having trouble with like formulating normal thoughts. So.
Also, if you're listening, put a mask on.
Yes, indeed. That's the beauty of virtual meetings, that no one is like, afraid of me during the meeting, which is nice.
That's right. Yeah.
So we have one special guest today. And you know what? Why don't we just introduce him and then we'll just banter a bit.
Yes.
So Andres Almiray.
Very close.
Or Andres, whatever.
Andres Almiray.
Yes, thank you. I should have just had you do it, man. I don't.
I got my Latino card somewhere here, so yeah. I am certified to pronounce Hispanic names.
Yes. So Andres is the senior principal product manager, or a senior principal product manager at Oracle in their database group. He's been with us before, but he's here mostly because he's, a Java champion and also the author of the JReleaser product. So welcome back to the show.
Thank you. And I just want to say that the reason why Danno is able to pronounce my name is because this is Groundhog Day. This is not the first time we have recorded the podcast. I have lost count.
Right.
Excellent. So, so it's been a while. Actually, our last recording was in November, sadly. So hopefully we'll get into a normal cadence.
It's hard to record a podcast during the holidays, and it's probably even harder to edit and splice and do all that and get it prepped during the holidays as well.
Exactly. And I think we had it ready for post-production right before the holidays, and so that didn't work in terms of getting it out quickly. So I have in the last month just been working on projects. I went to a conference, Code Mash.
How was that?
It was great. I didn't get COVID there.
Did they still go crazy about bacon? Like bacon's like one of their centers?
No, what was interesting, they didn't have as many advertisers this year. So they cut a lot of things. And I don't know if bacon was one of the things they cut, but I'm sure it would have been.
Yeah, probably. They were just like, everyone was like, so they like during breaks, you could just get all the bacon you want. And, I don't mind bacon, but it was almost a little bit obscene last time I went.
I suspect that they had already killed that, I think, before this year. But even though they cut back on some things, it was still a really great conference. So
was it snow all around driving up?
Yeah.
Such a freaky thing, like your snow, blizzard, water park.
Yeah, it is.
In the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, in the middle of nowhere, yeah.
Well, also, I mean, I guess that's a good reason for it to be indoors, right? Is because.
Yeah, but you know what? The humidity is nice, so you get to sleep easy and breathe easier. But sometimes they're just like, just give me some dry air. I've seen myself like walking outdoors at that conference here and there.
Yeah, I can see that. But what I love about that conference is just that there's so much stuff to do. It's not just, okay, here are some sessions and, we give you food and that's it. It's like, it's all the makerspace stuff. There's like board games. There's a casino night. It's just
there's a casino night. Oh, that's great. I really enjoyed watching just the music. They have like music room, and everyone brings their instruments. So
exactly. They have that too. Yeah. So they do a good job of just making it just a really fun place for geeks. And also just a really broad range of topics. I didn't get to go to that many sessions, as often happens as a speaker.
Right.
But I went to some, and it was a broad range of topics. So it was a lot of fun.
I was teaching a class, and someone had mentioned that they didn't get formally educated in software or anything like that. I said, it doesn't matter. And I said, but I bet you're good at music. And he's like, what? I said, I bet you're a musician and you're really good at music. And he's like, yeah, how do you know? And I'm like, there's this weird thing. And I'm sure everyone can make a connection, but musicians and programming, there's just a good, strong connection between the two. I don't know if it's the organization, the tempo, the thought processes, but they're so in line with one another that you'll see many crossovers.
Well, and what's interesting to me is that, like, the same way there's roles on teams, development teams, there's roles, in a band, or anyone who's playing together. And there's people that like to write music, people that like to arrange music, people that like to play instruments. The same way there's software, like there's architects, there's product managers, there's developers, there's
Yeah, sure. I mean, and it's all composition.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'm by no means a professional musician, but I enjoy it, and I do stuff with electronic music. And but I'm much more interested in like creating, like putting this stuff together than actually playing the individual instruments.
Right. I dig.
Which kind of fits well with my focus more on architecture. I do development a lot, but I couldn't do that. Only that. I'm not the strongest developer in the world. So So other than that, I've just been working on with clients on stuff. I should announce, and actually we with mobile apps and other stuff, but we actually just got approved to work on refreshing the Jakarta EE tutorial. So we're doing that with me and Bake Schultz. We're working on that. So that's gonna be a lot of fun, because I've been looking at that tutorial for the last decade, and I'm like, now I finally get to work on modernizing it and updating it and everything. So. By
the way, I'm in a weird little bridge project, and so I've taken over the. I don't know if you've heard of HTTP4S, but it's it's a server for Scala, but not just any Scala, type level Scala, which uses kind of like the same constructs as Haskell with type classes and things like that, and the IO monad, monads everywhere, yay! I said, yeah, I'll take over the. Not the servlet one, but the Tomcat one. So it's doing servlets and the Jakarta libraries, but try to make it fit in the fully functional world of type level. Type level is a grouping of projects that has a lot of great projects using Scala, and they all use monadic, compositional kind of stuff, and they have lots of different great libraries and frameworks and other things like that.
So you're taking over the project?
No, just that one small sliver of the Tomcat one, because I mentioned, I used to do Java EE, and I do type level stuff now. Like, all right, well, do and manage that one. So just wanted to mention that since Jakarta EE came up. So yeah, so I'll put it in the show notes. So yeah, nice. Type level is really cool. I mean, if you wanted to think about different ways to program using IO monad and async monad and bringing all those together. So stuff I don't fully understand. We should have an episode like Interview Danno episod. Yeah, I think that needs to be one of our. I'm going to trip over myself so much. All right. Anything interesting going on in Danno land? No, just doing that and working on that, and maybe coming up with a book, but it's not official, so I won't announce. But we're trying to see if there's a book that I could probably write. But the first one I don't think was going to go through, and that one was more on functional programming. So the one place where we were talking about, they weren't interested in that. So we'll see. It's not that I'm not to write a book, but they were looking through my catalog of talks. They were like, hey, "You want to write a book on that?" I'm like, no, but we'll see. I'll fill in the table of contents, and if they make a decision whether yay or nay, I'm not going to have hurt feelings over it. But yeah, so we're trying to feel around what comes of that, and just classes and enjoying being at home.
Okay, cool. So Andres, you've been it's been a few months, like almost a year since you're on the show. So, but what have you been up to recently?
Sorry, but actually, I do two things. So it's my day job as a member of the database group. What I do is promote technologies that are related to the database, but specifically to target Java developers. Because when people hear Oracle, they know it's Linux, it's Java, and it's the database. But when they don't actually put the three things together, there are many things that you can do in the open. There are free open source projects produced by Oracle or third parties. There are many things that I can talk about, but and that's exactly part of my day job. And I really like it because that means I can bring in my Java expertise and see how we can decorate or what's the word I'm looking for? Just add more flair, make sure that all the pieces are working together and reduce friction. And the other thing that I do on my free time is just hack and code because I like it. And that's one of the tools that was discussed in the previous podcast came to be JReleaser. I think it was in November last year, I also created just another small tool called Jarviz, which is another CLI tool. And the reason why this thing has started is when you are the maintainer of a library or a plugin, you typically have to think what is the minimum code base bytecode level that you can support. And as your library or project grows, you might add more dependencies. And it might be the case that one of those dependencies has been compiled with a more recent version of bytecode. If you consume that dependency, and if you do not check the bytecode level and release your library, then you're going to push to the consumers that if they want to use the latest version of your project, then they need to upgrade to the next version of JDK or whatever it is. And maybe that is an incompatible change. There are a few ways to detect this. Most of them require just cracking open the jar and finding out what classes are there and maybe use the IDE. And I just wanted to have those capabilities, but using a command line tool. That did not exist. I created that command line tool, and because it's something that can locate jars and crack them open and inspect what is inside, then you can do more stuff like, can I display the manifest? Or query the manifest for a given attribute. Or maybe you want to know if there are any services, declarative services defined in the jar file, and which implementations for such services. And there are a few other ideas that I have for the tool, but basically the point is that working on all these different pieces of code, examples for my daily job or stuff that I do in the open, I find use cases where it would be ideal, perhaps, to have either a command line tool or a build tool plugin to solve that issue, and that issue is not there. So either you do it yourself, you scratch your own itch. That's the epitome of an open source developer, or you find someone that can help you with that.
Right. You mean you don't like these magic numbers that keep appearing, that you're using the wrong JDK and your library was compiled forward compatibility failures?
Yeah, exactly. There was one time that I put a new version of a particular dependency, and the jar, everything was fine except for 3 classes that were, for some reason, they were compiled with a more recent version of the JDK. And I was able to flag the build as broken thanks to the Enforcer plugin. Well, it's Maven or Gradle, they will do a great job with this. But I was not able to know to pinpoint which classes caused the trouble. The report that I got from the plugins was that dependency is not compatible.
Right.
But I want to know why. So that's what I wrote this tool to get deeper information about a jar to actually be able to know, is it safe really to do this? Or do I need to find a replacement or find something else to fix the problem?
Right. Do you think that would be valuable for people who are still like in JDK 8 land for whether they could upgrade or not? Okay.
Right. One of the things that I'm currently working is support, resolving module names, whether it's automatic or the file name and a few things. And the tool will work regardless of the Java version that you have. Minimum version to run is 11, but because it uses JReleaser to release itself, it can create custom Java runtimes with JLink. So I just ship my production code with a Java runtime. So you don't have to have a pre-installed version of Java. The thing just works.
Right. JLink is amazing. You're on mute, Kito.
Thank you. Let's take a step back and talk about what JReleaser is for those who don't know. JReleaser
is a release tool. The original idea behind JReleaser is that if you have a project that produces binaries, such as a CLI or a desktop application, you would like people to use those things. Now, many times we find that, and I did that in the past as well as a developer, I build my thing, I put it in a Git repository, and I give you the instructions how to build it so that you can get the binary. Yes, that works for developers. That's very user-friendly. It's much better if I say, here's a binary. It's distributed through many distribution channels, such as Sancro. Do you like Homebrew or Snapcraft or Winget or Scoop or any other package manager? Just do whatever you use to install your binaries through the package manager of your choice, and you will get the binary format project. In order to make this happen, you need to understand the specific package manager, create manifest files, JSON, XML, YAML, whatever it is, validate things, and that's a lot of things to know, to learn in order to support a particular package manager. So JReleaser knows all these things, and based on initial metadata of your project, it can create all the required files that may be used to publish to package managers. That is the basic idea of the tool, and it has grown into, it can create a Git release for you, it can create a changelog based on commit messages, it can now finally deploy to Maven Central, it can deploy jars and pumps to any compatible Maven repository. It can do a lot of things, and it's a little bit, sometimes a little bit of a gray area between a build tool and a release tool. But because we have a split explicitly between what is the build and what is a release, turns out that JReleaser can be used with any kind of project, regardless of the source file, the source type, and regardless of how the binaries, if there are any, were built. So we have examples for Haskell, C#, C++, even Perl. Why? Because you keep Rust, you keep using the builder of choice. Doesn't matter what you do, just once you get the binaries, then you turn into the release tool with the metadata, and then you just push the binaries to wherever they need to be.
So I got an interesting question. I think I've handled this question a few times, but probably not as elegant as you're about to answer. For someone who does web-based projects, is JReleaser valuable? Like, you don't necessarily need, do you? I don't know. Like, for someone who does web projects, like JReleaser seems like for someone who does distributions that are going to be downloaded that you can include. But if you're creating a web project, is that valuable as well? And where would that fit in?
It depends. You can tell that I have a consultancy background because I will keep saying that word a lot.
Depends. Where's my check?
Yes. If what you're looking for is to distribute the website or the web application to its final location, likely JReleaser is not going to help you there. But additionally to that, and it depends on the type of application you're doing, if what you need is to create a Git release page with release, and additionally perhaps announce the release to many different distribution channels. So you can go to a Slack or send an email or push to a webhook. And most recently, in the latest version that we're working on, you will also be able to share a post on LinkedIn. If it makes sense for your project and the application that you're working on, then the tool can help you in that regard.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And the most common, excuse me, the most common use case or the most common type of application that people use release for the, for the sort of deployment aspect, package manager aspect would be like a CLI application, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Many of the projects that have so far have chosen to use JReleaser, they are command line tools. And since we released version 1.3.0 past end of October, that's when we added support for releasing to Maven Central or Nexus or other Maven compatible repositories. We have seen an uptake of projects that just want to do deploy to Maven Central. They don't care about CLIs because they are deploying libraries, just jar files. Or
oh, you cut out there.
Yeah.
Hold on.
the Maven release plugin. And
Can you say that again, Andres?
Sorry.
You cut out there. We couldn't hear you. Can you say that again, whatever you were saying?
Oh, sorry. So what I'm saying is that the projects, there have been an uptake of projects that are now using JReleaser for deploying to Maven Central. Some people like myself think that the Maven release plugin may be too complex or maybe flaky in certain scenarios. And the JReleaser will help you do the release in a different way, but in the same with the same results. That is, you get your jar files and POM files published to Maven Central.
Right. So I'm going to make a statement, and you can tell me true or false, or it depends. So JReleaser. So if someone says I'm thinking about using the Maven release plugin, and if I come around saying don't bother, go with JReleaser, would you agree with that, or would it be it depends as well?
It will be, and it depends, because here's what the release plugin from Maven does. It forks your build, checks out the code, builds to see that everything's fine, tags, pushes the release into Maven Central, and then changes the version number to the next snapshot and pushes the commit. It does everything automatically for you. So if you have a simple project, then the release plugin is perfect for you. Right. If you do things with JReleaser, you have to add more steps. JReleaser can tag for you. It can also will do the deploy of that, but not yet. It doesn't calculate the next version of the project. Why?
Correct.
Because JReleaser as a release tool was thought of as separate from the build. So you can invoke it as a CLI. You can invoke it as a Docker image. And that, in that case, is not connected to the build system. So it wouldn't be able to make the safest assumptions to say, oh, this is the next version that you should be using, and also update whatever build files that will reflect those changes. I mean, this is one of the features that people have been asking since the beginning, to also be able to auto-increment the number after release. For the reasons that I just explained, that's why we have not done it yet. There may be some cases where we will be able to do it. So it's not a hard no. It will be perhaps in the future. And then again, that is why it depends. What are your expectations during a release? If the release tool should take care of every single aspect, then the Maven Releaser plugin does take care of more things than JReleaser in that regard.
The other thing is, like, versioning is hard. Like, because we have our legacy way in Maven of versioning, which includes the dash snapshot. If you don't have the dash snapshot, then that's going to be, a release unless you have the word release in it. But since then, there's been Semver, semantic versioning, which we don't adhere to with Maven. And are there snapshot releases with Semver? I mean, you can get into like a furious debate on how should you do versioning for a Java project.
And it's not just that. So Semver is quite popular, and not just in Java, but in other ecosystems as well.
Right.
But it's not the only specification for versioning your projects. There is Cronver that uses years, months, weeks, days, minors, and micro patches. So similar to
Did you say Cronver? CRON?
CH. There is
CH, okay, right, of course.
There is Culver for calendar version, which uses year, month, day, and I think a patch or a tag. There in Java, we have two additional ones. There is the Java module and Java version. Similar to Semver, it's just that they support additional elements at the end. So that instead of a tag, it could be a build, or it could be tag and build. And it so happens that JReleaser supports all of them.
Wow. Is there Oracle No, sorry. I remember the versions for Oracle 1.9.2.000 538.926. What? Like, what version is this? It's crazy. But yeah. Oh, and then there's a Graal VM. And I remember Graal VM was like, congratulations, we finally released Graal VM, our first edition into production. And people were like, what number is it? I think it was like Graal 18. I thought you were going to start with Graal 18, and people were like, what? But yeah, versions, everybody has one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Andres, what was the last one you mentioned? Just the Java I'm trying to add this to the show notes. So,
Java module and Java version.
Okay,
they are very similar.
Okay,
they are not identical.
Java module and what was the other one? Was the last one again?
Java version, which is the one that the JDKs follow.
Right.
Okay. Wow. I didn't realize there was like that much.
I pretty much stopped at Semver too. I was like, okay, this is what I see a lot of out there. Wow. Okay. Right. So this segues to another topic I wanted to discuss, which CLIs have become even more popular, which I think is fascinating to me. Become more popular over time, considering all the different interfaces we have to things. But so first of all, can you give us some examples of well-known CLIs that are using JReleaser?
Well, the tool uses a library called picocli that enables me to define what commands I would like to have in the CLI, and it's all driven via annotations. It also supports internationalization. You can have subcommands, optional flags, and exclusive flags within one or the other. There are many things that you can do, and I really, really love it. All the people in the Java space will prefer to use perhaps JCommander, which is, I think it's perhaps 1 or 2 years older than picocli. And that requires, that's an explicit API that is not annotation driven.
Okay.
And it's not as rich as picocli. I think that picocli has more features and is more actively maintained. So if you want to get started, then my recommendations go to picocli. You can use it plain as it is, just with with just Java. Or if you want to turbocharge your application with any other things that you need, for example, you can use either Spring Boot or Micronaut or even Quarkus. So you have dependency injection and databases, or whatever it is that you need, and not just the CLI setup.
Wait, so you're saying, I don't think I realized that. So you could write like just a CLI app with those frameworks?
Yes, you can.
Huh. I did not.
And there are a few of those that already exist out there.
Yeah. Do you need JANSI for the coloring, or does picocli do that already?
picocli includes it as a dependency, I believe.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't know if you're familiar, Kito, with JANSI or JNSI. It'll help you do the color schemes and all that for a CLI. But I guess it's not needed if you're going to be using picocli.
Yeah, this comes in. And I want to say something more. That there is a website called CLIG.dev. These are guidelines for writing effective command line interfaces. Really, really useful. And if you are into CLIs, then I certainly recommend you to have a look at this document.
Okay, I was going to save this for the very end of this session, but theory, because like I know Kito and I are around the same age. He's 47, I'm 50. And Kito, I know probably you had your same origins nearly as I did, and maybe Andres, you did as well. But it's so funny because like, you know, my first computer were like at home Commodore computers. Everything was CLI based. And of course, you know, played the game or whatever, you had graphics there. Then desktop came in and we're like, oh, and using a mouse, and it was like, oh my God, look at the Windows and everything like that. But we're cycling back to CLIs. Even the kids are into it. Like the young developers are like, stop giving me a desktop. And I see them like with like pure Linux environments, no windowing or anything like that, except for the browser and maybe an IDE. But like they're digging the CLI, and I'm like, wow, we just had like this entire movement of desktop windowing systems. And for most developers, it's just like, nah, I love my CLI. I have a few tools that I'm going to be talking about a little bit later. But yeah, I think we're all becoming more enamored again with the CLI. It just looks good, it feels good. You know, having everything there. We don't waste time moving mice around or anything like that. So I find that a fascinating topic.
Yeah, just look at the projects hosted at the Cloud Native Computer Foundation.
Sure.
There are either websites, web pages, or command line tools. Most of them. Yep. There are hardly any desktop applications.
Yeah, totally. Love it.
Yeah. I had 2 points to make. First, you mentioned ANSI. So I was one of those kids. We had a Commodore Trash 80 first. But my dad worked for AT&T, and he brought home a PC, which was back then. You know, and it had 256K of RAM, I think.
Was this the AT&T computers with Unix on it?
No, it had DOS. It had DOS.
Oh, weird. Okay.
I wish it had Unix. That would have been cool, but no.
And I remember like 1982, I'm like 10 years old walking to school, and I had heard about I don't even know where I got this information, but like AT&T computers with Unix. And I'm like, I don't know what Unix is, but I could figure it out. And I was like a 10-year-old kid, just like, give me Unix. I don't know what that is, but it looks so great.
I wonder what would have happened if they brought that home. But anyways, so I used to hang out on Baltimore systems, and I taught myself Pascal and stuff. And my first program, because back then you would, instead of open source, you could release shareware, right?
Right. I love it. Yeah.
Freeware, right? So my first one was the silliest program, but I thought it was cool enough to like put on bulletin board systems or something. But all it did was use different ANSI codes to create colors. That's all it did. It just output some text and changed colors. And I was like, I figured out how to make colors. I'm so happy.
Something you'd be proud of. Absolutely.
Yes,
oh, what a wonderful thing.
That was my first little public program. Fortunately, no one can find anymore. So, but anyways, so I think the command line thing is fascinating. Especially, I find myself doing more and more stuff there. And then the reason I brought this up is because I work with a lot of tools which aren't written in Java that have great command line stuff, right? And I'm wondering, like, if I were doing it in Java, what would it be? You know? And
go ahead. I was just going to admit, I love CLI, but I'm ashamed to say I haven't invested. I know it's probably going to take one day, but I've not invested in Tmux. And if I'm going to continue to use CLI, I need to make sure that I understand Tmux.
What's Tmux?
So it's terminal multiplexer is what it stands for. So that way you could have like multiple terminal windows instead of a terminal window. Like if your whole life is going to be terminal, then I think Tmux you're going to have to like put an investment on. I don't know if you use it on this.
But I'm aware of a library. It's what is it called? It's Bubble Tea. There's a company called Charm that writes libraries for CLIs. And everything is written in Go. But take, for example, if you remember Red Hat from Red Hat Linux from version 4 or Slackware, It's really ugly looking N-curses dialogues. Everything was on the terminal to install.
Oh, yeah, I loved it.
Well, so it's the same idea, but it's not ugly. It's beautiful and it's modern.
Wow.
So you have dialogues and you have progress bars and animations and menu bars, everything, but it's command line based.
What's the name again?
Charm. I think the website is called charm.io.
Wow.
And sadly for us, it's not Java, but luckily for us, it's command line tool. So if you're into command lines, then just have a look at that.
You know what? I did see that before. Okay. Yeah. Oh, it's just so amazing. Thanks for bringing that up because I would have forgotten about it.
By the way, if you want to get the show notes for this, you can find it at stackpodcast.com.
Oh, we're going to have some show notes today.
This is a wonderful show notes. Yeah. There's a Chrome extension. This is not the right thing. What is it called again?
It's not charm.io. Yeah, it's maybe something else.
Well, maybe it's Charm CLI. Oh, Charm SH.
SH, yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, I did see that one before, but I forgot about it.
That's the one. So if you're into building command line tools, regardless of the source language, two things. Look at the guidelines, clig.dev, and look at other libraries that can help you build command line tools. Charm SH for Go, picocli for Java.
Nice. Wow, this looks really cool. Okay. Nice. All right. I had another question for you. What doesn't Quarkus use use JReleaser? Like what other CLIs that we might have used that not even realize we use JReleaser? I know there's two Dannos.
Oh yeah, weird. Yeah, I don't know why you're saying two of them. There should only be me. Here's speaking of, I'm going to put this on the chat. Sorry, listeners, if you're not. Message is too long. Anyways, I crashed and I had like a bunch of this gibberish on here. By the way, I know you asked a question, but let me just draw hex dumps. I've always been enamored with. Like since we're talking about CLIs, you go to someone's machine and they have a hex dump. It looks like they know what they're doing, but maybe they don't. But you want to look impressive, just have a hex dump. Put that on your screen.
Yes.
That's right.
I have a quick aside. I have a friend who's actually does medical philosophy stuff, but she's really smart and really good with math. And she worked with somebody who was one of those people that wants people to think they're really smart, but isn't really.
Oh, yeah.
And he has a binary clock on his desk. And she walked in and she's like, "How come your clock is wrong?" And he's like, "What? Huh? No. Most people don't even know how to read this or anything." He didn't even realize it. And it was just, yeah. So I thought that was funny.
Oh, that's harsh. Oh my gosh. Man, that's one of my biggest fears. Like, that's why I like to keep it humble. Like,
yeah.
For a lot of people, saying I don't know is like one of the worst things, but like, I need to make sure I say I don't know, because my worst fear is like getting caught that I just BS'd an answer.
Exactly.
And then you get caught like, that's the worst thing. But yeah. Or having a clock you don't understand, or, that's what that is. Yeah.
So, Kito, the answer to your question, does Quarkus use JReleaser? In a way. No, probably we lost Kito for a moment. Are you still there?
I think he probably cut his video. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead. So Quarkus itself, the project, does not use JReleaser. They have their own process to do the releases and the changelog and everything like that. But they do have a command line tool called Quarkus CLI. This one does make use of JReleaser to push to Homebrew, to Chocolatey, and even though JReleaser also supports the SDF package manager, I don't think they're using JReleaser for it yet. And they know that if they for every reason they need to do support any other package manager, it's likely that JReleaser already gives us the answer to that.
Right, right. Okay.
Are there, and I guess I don't know this, I assume there was, is there standards for like installation of Java that it doesn't matter what package manager you use? Because now I'm kind of stuck, and I'll talk about like a product coming up. But I remember I usually use SDKman for all my JDK stuff. And then I installed something on Homebrew, and then it installed another JDK. Yeah. Another JDK 19. And this is making me angry because now we have like proliferation of JDKs all over the place. I thought we were going to end up with standards. I don't know if it's even SDK man's fault for having, your home directory, SDK candidates, I think is where it stores, which is not necessarily the XDG convention that we usually use, but not everyone uses a Linux.
That's exactly the thing. On OS X, I don't think they follow the XDG convention. So Homebrew and Markbox will install wherever they want. And if you use SDKman, also go somewhere else. There is another tool that only works for JDKs. It's called Java, JAVVA. And I'm going to put it there in the text. And everyone will install the JDK in a completely different location.
Oh, it just drives me nuts.
But if you're on Linux and your application follows the XDG conventions, then it's very likely that it will be only one place. But the thing is, not everyone does it. And then we have to deal with Windows.
Yes.
Which also has their own conventions, depending if you use winget or the scoop or the others. So I don't think we're going to get one single location for JDK 7.
Right. Yeah. And it's just not only that tool, it's, all these other tools that, without that convention, you're just like, we're going to have to keep getting hard drives because who knows what's on it, how many JDKs or how many development environments. I'm sure .NET suffers the same thing. I'm sure definitely Python suffers the same thing as well. So yeah, things are all over the place, which is sad because we should have figured this out by now. Which is, again, I love SDKman, but I don't know if there's the value there. So I'm looking at Nix, but we'll talk about that as my pick a little bit later on. Cool. Kito, is Kito back? All right, we'll talk more about JReleaser then. Okay, so last time we talked, I haven't done it yet, but it also uses JPackage, which does RPMs, debs, and a few of these other items. Is that true? Like that's what it does, right? It has to use the JPackage in order to do that.
JPackage is a command line tool that comes from the JDK directly. It was previously known as the JavaFX packager from Java 8, Java 11. Yes. It was removed in 11 and then added as a preview feature in 14, added as a final feature in 16. And basically, the command line tool allows you to build native platform installers. So you mentioned RPM and dev for Linux, DMG or package for OS X, or MSI or XE for Windows based either on Wix or Eno, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but here's the thing, like for the JReleaser though, if you want to build a deb or an RPM, and correct me if I'm wrong, from my understanding, you have to be on a Linux machine in order to do it.
You have to. JPackage does not work in a cross-platform manner. If you want to build an installer for Linux, you have to run it on Linux. The same goes for the other platforms.
So this is where you'd likely want to do your CI/CD environment and branch out for those particular OSs if you are going to do a build.
On their specific platform that you're targeting, which is opposed to generated cross-platform Java runtimes with JLink. You can be on Windows and generate a JLink image for Linux or Mac or for any other kind of platform as long as you have a JDK for it.
Correct.
That's cool.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that JReleaser does. It allows you to assemble these custom cross-platform Java runtimes with JLink, or you can consume them if you build it with Maven, Gradle, or something else. But the advantage of using JReleaser is that given the configuration, you can do this whole cross-platform with the same configuration.
Yeah. Oh, I think everyone's freezing. Kito, are you there?
I think he said he's going to come back.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you froze there for a bit. What? I don't know why I forgot. JLink, and what's the one that you shake out all the different modules that you're not needing, and you can create a customized.
That's the one. That's JLink.
That's JLink. Okay, I'm missing one in my head.
So JLink and both JLink and JPackage rely on JDeps, which is the one that can let you.
JDeps. There we go. Yes.
Yeah, that's the one that performs the introspection to figure out which modules you have, and dependencies and a few other things.
Yeah, those are amazing. I think those are highly underused. And I have my theory that as Java developers, that's going to be well worth it to understand JDeps, JLink, and maybe even JPackage for anything, because you get a small footprint JDK. And if you're doing containers, like a Docker container or anything like that, you can get a really, really, really small footprint JDK, and you don't need to bring in all that extra baggage as well.
Yeah, exactly. It depends again on what is kind of target do you have in mind. If you want to stay in the Java mode, you can create a minimal Java runtime with JLink and ship your production code bundled with it. Or you can go all the way down to native code using Gradle native. Right. You have advantages and both pros and cons for both approaches, Java mode or native mode, connecting to debuggers and other things. So both of them can do things. And it depends on your use case, which one of them would you like to go?
Okay. I think we're all stuck. Andre, it looks like you froze there, and Kito's out. So, editor, we'll come back here pretty soon as the connectivity comes in.
Yeah, for me, you are the one that is.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
It's weird.
Oh, maybe it is me. Okay. Yeah. All right. Excellent. Yeah. So yeah, pretty exciting stuff. So what are some of the new things with? I think we covered. I don't know if we covered these, but some of the newer things with. We have 1.5.0 environment variables, system property support, which I thought we had already for JReleaser.
We do.
Yeah. Kito, can you see me and hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but now Andres.
Yeah, Andres is frozen. He was saying I was frozen, so I don't know. I don't know who's freezing who.
I had to go because my kid needed something. Well, maybe hopefully
we're just talking about the new stuff on 1.5.0.
Okay.
For JReleaser.
I like the LinkedIn announcer. That's cool.
That is. I should be using LinkedIn a lot more.
I actually find that the posts I get on there are more interesting because it's not a whole bunch, and it's just people I actually care about.
Yeah.
Hello there. Welcome back.
Yeah, we're back. Hello. Yeah. So we were just discussing. Yeah, we were just discussing the LinkedIn announcer, and then we got a little sidetracked. I'm like, I should be using LinkedIn a lot more. Like that is just I don't know what it is. I think there's no silly memes and stuff like that. Nor should you. But sometimes that's the stuff we crave. Like Twitter. I don't use Twitter, or I vacated there. But Twitter was more like the bar, and LinkedIn was more of the office. But it's important that you have an office, I guess.
Yeah. So we have just pushed a LinkedIn announcer, so you can post releases to LinkedIn, and some people would like to do that. So why not? I mean, they have an API, and it makes sense to do the integration. And the same goes for any other place where people would like to post announcements. If there's a webhook or an HTTP endpoint, we likely already support it. If there's something explicitly with OAuth, which is what LinkedIn required, then we need to add explicit support to it. And that is the case. If you want to see something that is not there yet, just get in touch with us, open a ticket, open a discussion, and we'll figure it out.
Right. Okay, so a question on my part. So when you use JReleaser, JReleaser can stand on its own, and you can have a JReleaser YAML. So you don't need to cook that in or bake that into your build tool. But
Correct.
you also have build tool support. So you can bring in a JReleaser Maven plugin and put your manifest there as part of Maven. Yes. I also think you have that as well with Gradle as well.
Yes.
Of my opinion, it seems like it's more valuable to use either the Maven plugin or the Gradle plugin, because you could also use some of the properties that you've already established within your build tool. Do you agree with that, or is there just more value of like having your own JReleaser YAML?
If you're building with Maven and Gradle, then I would recommend you to use the plugins. The reason why JReleaser itself uses the command line is because every release that we post, every time we push to main, to the default branch, we create a new snapshot, a new early access release, which is built with the previous one. So we do a lot of dogfooding. And we don't publish a snapshot releases of the Maven or Gradle plugin. Because we are not able to build the next version with the previous one. That's why we use the CLI for JReleaser itself.
Okay.
But my first option, my first recommendation is you're using Maven or Gradle, use the plugins, because that is the stable version first. And second, that means you don't need anything else additionally to be installed in order to do the releases. You just use the build tool itself.
Right.
It helps. I mean, if you're the only one working on the project, it's a 50-50, I guess. But if you're working on a team, you will likely like to minimize the surface of all the tools that you need to install in order to do the job.
Right. And then the other thing too is that if you use JReleaser, you would, I don't know if this is still the case, you would have to explicitly run the packaging. Like you can't just do the standard, the standard release. Like if you're creating packages, you would still have to, if that's correct. It's been a while for me.
Create the binaries or the archives.
Yeah, create the binaries. You have to explicitly run the binaries first and then run the release.
You have to use a build tool, of course, in order to create the classes, the jar files, and sometimes the archives. For example, you can use the Maven, App Assembler, and assembly plugins to create zip archives or tar archives with the right structure. Or you can use Gradle's application plugin and distribution to do so. But in version 1.4, we also added the Java archive assembler, which can create archives with the right structure. Why we did this? Because basically what you need for these kind of distributions is just the set of libraries, the jar files, and a launcher script. And for whatever reason, some people have been having trouble with app assembler and assembly. The configuration that you see in the Java archive assembler from JReleaser is much simpler. So we give you choices. It doesn't matter how those archives have been created. Once you have them, you can decide where you want to release them.
Okay, understood. And to me, I thought that was more of the benefit of like integrating JReleaser with your build tool, because your build tool's likely going to be creating those archives anyway.
Yes, exactly.
All right. I think I understand it now. That's right.
Very cool. All right, so I have a general question. So who else works with you on this project? Because it seems like a lot of work. It seems like you're very busy.
Andres doesn't sleep. Oh, I know.
There have been some theories going around that I'm a robot or I have clones of myself, to do all the work. I do it on my spare time, but I do bounce. So most of the code base is produced by me. Most of the code I write it myself. But we get contributions, and from code, we get contributions for translations, but also bounce back and forth a lot of ideas with other people, some early adopters and some other friends, and with Excel as well, my wife. And that's how we can get the tool to the state where it currently is.
Okay. Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. Power couple. Java champion power couple. That's right.
We call JReleaser our COVID baby.
Aw.
Yes.
All right.
Well, being stuck for more than 2 years at home is like, well, what else can you gonna do?
Nice. All right. Well, I think we got a few more topics. We should probably pick a couple other to discuss.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into controversy.
Yes. Why don't you start with your controversy topic?
Yeah. Let's see. Microsoft, GitHub, OpenAI asked court to throw out. It's like, I don't know. It's like people with money tend to like, I don't know, threaten courts to throw out lawsuits just because they don't like the way it works. While us, poor folk. Oh no, I'm going into like a really big tangent here. But anyway, Microsoft, GitHub, which are the same thing, OpenAI, they're trying to throw out a lawsuit because the lawsuit is saying, hey, look, your Copilot is using licensed material for its training. Stop doing that and respect the licenses. And so there's a lawsuit, and so they're just asking the courts to throw it out.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. Honestly, it's sort of. I think Copilot is pretty brilliant, and I imagine it's also a lot of what the reason GPT. Thank you. Can just spit out code randomly.
Yeah.
But I've often wondered. I bet you it makes companies think twice about putting stuff on GitHub.
Right. But remember, in the university, like if you copied off somebody else, then you may have gotten penalized for that. Like, what happened to that? Right.
Well,
now you have like machine learning algorithms just copying off of everyone. Like, is that okay now? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And does the legal system still hold? Do licenses still hold?
Another footnote here is Getty Images is also suing Stability AI over claims the company's Stable Diffusion tool unlawfully scraped images from the site.
Yeah.
Which it probably did. I'm guessing.
Right.
I'm just speculating. I'm not saying I know anything about it. I'm just speculating.
I know.
Yeah.
Gosh, I could go off onto this rant of just like, yeah, we have copyright in place for like, for the rest of us, but for the top people,
Yeah, and it's like, and once it's in there, I mean, how do you get it out? I mean, I guess, I don't know.
The model's already been trained. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about AI, so I can't say that I have any particular insight, but it's
I know machine learning, whether it's like translates to AI or not. I'm not gonna venture with that. But the analogy I always make for like machine learning is the way we learn, and I always liken it to our calculus test or our physics test or our SAT exams. By the way, I made that analogy in Canada, and they were like, "What's an SAT and ACT exam?" Which maybe you don't know, Andres, but we have our entrance exam for university. And here in the United States, we just like to stress out our kids, like they already have a full plate. Let's just throw like this entrance exam that may ruin their lives. and we have that. Canadians were like, yeah, we just go from high school to university. If you did well in high school, you just go to university. I'm like, really?
Wow.
I'm like, wow, that sounds like a really wonderful place where you live. Yeah. But anyway, I was mentioning that like if you take an SAT exam, you usually have like answers in the back of the book. And that's your training mode. That's the way machine learning works, is that it has a source and it has learned something from called supervised learning, and it learns from it. And then you test it. Very much like the way we humans are tested. We had the answers in the back of the book. We made our own practices, but how well do we really know it? That's where we do the test. And if we didn't do well, then we go back to it and maybe get some different kinds of samples. And so that's the way machine learning works. But if you give it proprietary, copyrighted information, then it's learning off of that. It's not to say it's still there. It's just used the proprietary information. I would probably venture to say the best legal thing to do is whoever created the model. And if it's proven, that's the tough part. Can you prove it learned from it? And if you could prove it learned from it, then obviously whoever's running that model has to pay up.
Yeah. It's hard because I think the problem is that the use case is different. Like, if I spend all this time looking at all these copyrighted images, like, maybe I'll create a new image that looks sort of like one. Maybe I won't, but I certainly can't do it thousands of times a day, over, my capacity is limited, right? But with the model, it's like, once you have the model, you can do all these things with it, right? You can generate new images, you can generate images like the other ones. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of the problem, right? Is that
that's happening with music too. Like for a lot of music, they're bringing in like multiple hits, like well-known hits together. So you'd be like, bring in Taylor Swift and Led Zeppelin. I don't know, I made that one up. But like you could like make some, that might work, who knows? But you could bring in these songs and like one, it's manipulated, hand manipulated, but machine learning is becoming a part of music now. I don't know, like I would think that we as humans, or any music aficionados, we could start to detect patterns, and I would think music would begin to get stale if they continue to do that, but who knows? Maybe we're about to embark on some wonderland of music that machine learning algorithms are writing instead of humans.
There's been a field in music called generative music for a long time. Basically, you generate music based on algorithms.
Wow.
So I imagine they'll just get a lot smarter, right? Those algorithms that are used to generate the music will actually learn from existing music. And I think for a good portion of the population, you could very easily generate a pop song, a hit pop song pretty easily. Maybe it might be harder to find a vocalist that's good because the computer singing stuff, not quite there yet.
Especially for the band Led Swift, which I just created right now.
You should copyright that.
So it could be used in a machine learning model.
Exactly.
Taylor Zeppelin and Led Swift.
Indeed. So it's going to be an interesting time. Honestly, this is happening earlier than I thought it would. I thought it would be a few more years out before all this stuff started happening, but such is life.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right.
So you had another topic here, Danno. Do kids still like Java?
Do kids still like Java? I was doing a training for the company that is the backing company for Kafka. You may have heard of them, but Confluent. They have a set of training material, and on their exercises that you could either choose Java, Python, or .NET for any of the exercises, whatever you like. For a long time, because I've been working with them for a while, it was Java. But a lot of these are just, new developers coming into the workplace. And they were like, in fact, this time around, I thought it was really strange because there was only like one person doing Java. I got a Java question. And so everything within Kafka, the native language is Java. And I mentioned that to them, like the native language is Java. So wink, wink, maybe you want to try that. No, they were all using Python. Which I know my way around, but I was like really shocked that it was like 95% of everyone in my class was just like, how do I do this in Python? Where under my breath was like, how the hell should I know? No. But I was kind of surprised by that. And this is the same time I saw a Medium blog post. Someone was saying Java is dead, which I kind of chuckle at. Because I don't know if you remember when Ruby started becoming really, really popular around 2004, one of its luminaries was like, Java's dead. And we're like, okay, that's kind of confrontational, but okay. And I think I like Ruby a lot, but I think Java outlasted Ruby as far as like the use case. But are Java's days numbered just as far as usability and preference? And do the kids still love it? Or do the kids really like get attracted to Java, or are they just attracted to Python or JavaScript? So your opinions?
Yeah, I think about this a lot. We talk about this a lot at Java 1 with all the Java champions about like, what is, Java and education and stuff like that. At least the in the US, the AP test for computer science is still Java. I was asking someone about that recently. And I ran into, it's ironic, I was doing rock climbing with my kids, and we ran into, one of the people that was working there, and I was wearing a Java Champions jacket, and she looked at me and she's like, "Oh, you use Java?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, why?" She's like, "Oh, I'm a computer science major." And I'm like, "Oh, really?" And she'd used some Java, and I didn't get the impression that she was like, "Oh, that Java's old crappy stuff." She would just mention different languages she used, Java and Python, I think maybe some JavaScript. But I was glad to see that. I was worried I'd get this some old, Java's that crappy language sort of thing. Yeah. So I was glad. You do
have some gray hair like I do.
Know.
So it matches the Java. Yeah, that's right.
Yes. But this is what we all come back to. It's just, it's just a lot easier to get started. I mean, I've done a decent amount of Python, not more for like tooling stuff than production user-facing apps, but build and testing and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed it a lot.
Great, yeah.
And it really was easy to get started. But since I like types, I added the optional typing, which is much better from my perspective. But I think the general perspective seems to be that part of the problem with Java is just that it's just hard to get started with and get stuff done quickly. You got to think about it more. Yeah.
Someone was mentioning that they do JavaScript and they do Node.js, and they were taking a look at Java's its tooling and its environment and the way we do things, and was really impressed. Not just like we don't have node modules, we actually have like a .m2 directory in one location. But like other than that, was just like, wow, the IDEs are great, the tooling is great, the community is great. Was just noticing that we have it really good, and I think that's true as well.
Yeah.
By the way, the Python with the type info, just do a compare and contrast between that and Scala. Very, very close to one another.
Really?
Wink, wink. Yeah. Scala is very enamored with Python as well. So we have optional braces now with Scala 3. So nice. they look like twins now. Yeah.
Nice. I need to get back to Scala. So
go ahead. I just want to mention all programming languages. I'm still with my singularity theorem that it's not going to matter what programming language you write in.
Because everything is going to revert back to Lisp, right?
That's right. Maybe
God.
not.
Oh, God.
But I think we're going to select like a functional language, an imperative language, which I don't think there is. Both are like both. Like C++ is also like has some functional stuff in it. It's either that or a Lisp. And then on the other side, do you want types or do you not want types? But everything else is just going to be, just how do you do a for loop, or is there map and flat map on this?
Well, that's kind of how I view it these days, right? I don't really. I mean, I'm certainly very entrenched in the Java ecosystem, but when I had the chance to do Python, I was like, all right, let me do some Python.
Right.
Do a lot of JavaScript and TypeScript. So
plus, you know what? You could blow the kids' minds by saying Python is much older than Java. I think by like 5 years, right, or something.
Is it really?
Yeah, I think so.
I did not realize that.
Let me double check.
I know Ruby is for 1 year.
1991, so by 4 years.
I did not know that. Huh.
Yeah. Python is older.
Andres, any thoughts on that?
Well, there's definitely no shortage of comments of can we get new kids into Java. And for us, are coming from the old guard. We coming from the time that Java became the thing that it is back in 95. And you look at the whole history, almost 28 years later, so many different things that we think people have to learn. The syntax and the library and the tools and the IDE and the build. And then suddenly it's like so many things. How can we decide what is the minimum set of information will be usable for someone that is coming into the platform anew and get started quickly? Mm-hmm. I don't have the answer because perhaps I'm too close to the problem because I've been using Java since forever. I've been using many of the tools. So things that are obvious to me are not obvious for those that are not yet into the platform.
Right. Yet,
there is one tool, well, since, when was it? JDK 9, we got JShell.
Yep.
That is a good starting point. And recent versions of the JDK have added new features to JShell. So we have a minimum code completion, and we have the var keyword since 11, and a few other things that make using JShell much palatable for people that are get started. But if I were to compare JShell to the Groovy console, there's still things that are missing. I am more productive using Groovy in that sense than using JShell.
Wow.
And one of the things that I'm missing in JShell is the ability to just find modules or find dependencies and use them directly. I can load files, but I cannot save every load state. So what if I were able to run a trivial Java command or a Java source file, some Java source with dependencies that somehow were attached to that source file? Right now,
you're saying like just a really quick interruption. Sorry about that, but just for our listeners, I want to use Apache Commons. I want to use Sluffer-J with this complement. I want to just declare that in a file and not create a build file or anything like that.
Exactly. Say you want to do a hello world using Apache Commons lang string utils. How do you do this? You need to know the compiler. You need to know the Java-C and Java commands. You need to know about the class path. You need how to find that there's that dependency, what are the coordinates, the thing about Maven Central, all these topics, right? But what if you only needed to know what are the gap coordinates of something that can provide the feature that you need or the class that you need, and somehow tie that with the source file? Not with a build file, but within the source file. This is one of the many features that another CLI tool that exists out there, its name is jban, allows you to do. With jban, you write Java scripts. Whether they are source Java or they are JShell scripts, you can add or tag in additional features such as dependency resolution. You can even download a Java runtime or a JDK that matches the version that you need.
Yeah, I gotta play with this.
Sweet.
And I was just thinking how I often when I need to just write a quick utility, I usually just use Bash because it works. I could use it everywhere.
Ubiquitous.
Yeah, and I don't have to install any dependencies. I don't even have to install, Node or Python or anything else. This might be a good way for me to actually be able to just do it in Java.
Yeah. Nice. All right, so here's my dumb ignorant question. Every time I see jban, the class name is always in small letters, and that throws me off. I haven't dived in just for that. I know I'm an ignoramus, but
yeah, I think that the preference to use is lowercase. And the interesting thing that you mentioned about Kito is that my go-to language for this kind of integration, so this glue thingy, is Bash. You're very good at it. Yeah. And if we were able to reuse the plethora of jar libraries that are out there in Java, we likely will do the same thing in Java instead of writing in Bash.
Yeah.
So jban is the thing that will allow you or someone else to go from Bash world into Java world. And I've been getting further into GitHub Actions in the past 2 to 3 years. And one of the things that you can do in GitHub Actions is write something that's called a composite action. Instead of writing your action using TypeScript, you can write it with any language. I write my actions in Java. And many of the actions that I can trigger, I do so with just plain Java and assuming I have a JDK that has been set up outside of the action, or I can use jban to perform that task for me.
Nice. Nice.
There are many different use cases where this tool can give you an answer. I'm not saying it's the answer to everything, but just to get started with CLIs and getting started with plain syntax or J shell with dependencies and some other things, it's a pretty good tool.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating.
It looks like it's also got IDE integration if you actually want to use a tool. So you can use
it has integration. So you can do something like jban edit and the name of the script or the source file, and that will open your favorite IDE or editor. It could be Vim or VS Code, Eclipse, IntelliJ, you name it.
Yeah, and also this is what I like is it's got a replit, which is like I can't remember. There's several of these sites that have sort of the project and let you run it inside of the project in your browser. I always forget the names of them all. Replit, I guess, is one. There's a couple more I've used in sessions before. But
I think Java needs one, actually, like an official one. I know Replit has it, but man, we're dying on that one, on that front, just because Scala has a beautiful one called Scasti. Okay. Yeah, and you just go in and just enter some stuff. I use it all the time. But if there was just a wonderful Java-based one, that would be such a huge win.
Yeah, definitely. All right. We should probably move on. We're running out. We're actually way over time, I think. Let's pick just maybe one or two more things.
We got a couple of. Actually, I think we're doing okay. I mean, a lot of these we covered already.
I did.
Wherever you want to go, Kito.
Yeah, I wanted to mention this one. I think this is an important one. So, Lambda, Amazon's function as a service. They've added the new feature. They added this back in November, but it's worth pointing out that they now have a new feature called Lambda Snap Start. So basically what it does is it enables you to start up, basically start your function and then save the state and then rerun the function from that state later.
Wow.
So basically you get rid of the cold start problem.
Right.
And
memoization. Memoization.
It makes total sense. And it's similar to what IBM is actually doing with their J9 JDK, and actually I think it's built into WebSphere, or WebSphere Liberty or Open Liberty, I think, where they can take a snapshot of what after your application started running and then run from that point later on. But to me, I thought this was pretty brilliant. There's no extra charge for use of Lambda Snapshot. Okay, cool. It has cache snapshots that it keeps for up to 14 days.
Wow.
And if your code creates long-term connections, network services during the init phase, which is what gets cached is after it's done with the init phase, you have to reestablish them. So there's of course some little little gotcha.
So it sounds like you don't even need to bake in a cache for your web application. You just let the Lambda do it if you're all integrated in.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, this to me is another sort of, sorry for my phone there. I should stop soon. This is another sort of option for, making sure you have fast Lambda functions that are running in Java or any other language. Right. But I think this is a plus because the whole native compilation thing is kind of a pain. So I don't think people should do it unless they really want to. Definitely tools like Quarkus and Micronaut, et cetera, that make it a lot easier. And Spring Boot native, I'm sure it does too. But if you can use this, you may not have to go through all that effort. So,
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. All right. So, Andres, are you still there? Are you frozen or are you
no, I'm still here.
Quiet. Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Staying very still.
All right, cool. All right. Any other topics you guys want to jump on before we run to picks and wrap up?
Let's see. I think everything that I wanted to talk about was on picks anyway, since we kind of have a theme for CLI.
Yeah.
I have a lot of CLI stuff here that I'd like to talk about, but yeah, unless there's anything else.
Okay. All right, let's go on to the picks.
All right. I've got 3 of them, and then it doesn't necessarily have to be CLI, but one of them, actually, all these 3 are mine, but yeah.
That's okay. I don't have any this time. So
yeah. So Nix OS, I haven't gotten fully into these yet, but these are on my radar that I'm hoping to pick up. One is called Nix OS. Has anyone ever ventured into that?
No, I've not heard of that.
Andres, have you? Yeah. What do you? Yeah.
Because
do you want to describe it, since I have all the picks here? But
it's another possibility as a package manager supported by JReleaser.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so interesting. Cool.
Yeah. So we don't have done anything yet, but we know that people use Nix to build applications for source and distribute it and be able to use it in I think it works on Linux and Mac. So
yeah, I thought there was a Windows, if I wasn't mistaken, but I could be wrong. Yeah.
So what exactly is it though?
So it is, and here's my phrasing, and maybe Andres has a better way to describe it, but it is a fenced in or a sandbox. This is kind of like a Docker container. When you run a Docker container, you could jump into the shell and start to use whatever that is. Well, Nix is kind of like that. It's very sandbox. So you want to say, look, my project right now is using JDK 11. It has this Maven. It has this. It has this. It has this. These are my needs right now. And the Nix will allow you to create environments so that way you can run in that environment. So when I don't know if it was during the podcast or before the podcast, one of the things I was bemoaning was, installing a JDK. I have like multiple JDKs because there's no standardization on like how to install a JDK. I have a JDK in the user local lib or whatever. I have one on SDK candidates. And if I install some other utility and it needs a JDK, it's going to install it at its own place. So I am littered with a bunch of JDKs from a Java perspective. Well, Nix is like, don't install that on your own machine. We're going to create a wonderful sandbox for you with everything that you need just for the purpose of this particular application. I don't know too deep into it. So again, this is more on my radar thing, but I think the way it operates is that you set up flakes called Nix flakes. I think is the way that operates, and you just specify the things that you want to run.
Yeah. In a way similar to what Snapcraft does, it also creates a file system with everything that your application needs and it's sandboxed. And you mount the file system and just let it run. This has all the connections with your current system and that particular mount.
Interesting. See, when I see this, what I see is, what I see is a way for companies to help developers have the same environment, right? Now, obviously, one way is to have something where it's completely hosted in a container that they never touch. This is a way for them to do it locally, it looks like, but still have everything, together.
Yeah, Windows, if you have WSL2, which probably you need anyway for the virtualization component. But yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's on my radar. I think it looks promising. For me, it was always like, well, don't we have Docker? But I think this is lighter weight. I don't know if that's true or not, or if you know that, Andres, if that's the case. Yeah, nixos.org. Linux, there's even like, and I forgot to mention this, there's also a Nix OS. So if you really want to go, full nerd on this, you download an ISO and it's its own Linux type of machine as well. So a lot of developers that I don't necessarily hang around with, but I do follow extensively, are becoming more and more attached to this utility. called NixOS.
Yeah. Precisely for that reason, it might be a target in the future for JReleaser.
Yeah, excellent. So something to pick up. Let's see. And then my next one, I'm a Vim user, and I've been using Vim for like ages. I love Vim, and got my Vim RC and everything's customized. But I've been looking at NeoVim. So one of the things that caused disruption in development environments was Visual Studio Code. Not that, the editing is, anything particularly awesome more than anyone else. But I still believe this to this day, that the disruption that Visual Studio Code brought out was the server language, or the backend server. If you create a brand new language, you can write a server language for it. And now you have editing capability with Visual Studio Code. You don't have to ask the makers of that IDE, hey, can you support my language? You just go and you create your own server language. Well, the server language portion of it can be used anywhere, including Vim and Emacs. And so NeoVim brings that. They have a lot of different utilities that you can use, a lot of modern utilities. You have code completion, because it uses the same, kind of like backend server language as Visual Studio Code does. And we're talking about CLIs again. I don't think there's a NeoVim desktop. It's all CLI. It's Vim on there. And if you use those programming fonts, which I think we had talked about last time, Kito, if you go to programmer fonts or whatever, and you can use, I forget what that's called. Is it Power? It's not PowerShell, Power something. Where it has like, these nice little arrows and things like that. Anyways, absolutely beautiful. It's great. It's a full IDE experience. They have Java, they have Scala, they have Kotlin, they have just about everything. And a lot of developers are just migrating to that. It's an IDE, non-IDE environment, but you have all the IDE accoutrements that you expect.
Talk about longevity. I mean, when did Vim first come out?
80s?
No, 70s. Wasn't Bill Joy part of that too?
VI was first, but Vim was later. Right?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
VI improved.
Because I remember I learned VI first, and then there was this.
Yeah, Vim was 1991.
Okay, that makes sense. It's new.
Right. Right.
It's just last decade.
Yes.
That's right. That's right, last decade.
As my daughter would say, back in the 90s.
Yeah.
The olden days, she would call that, basically.
But yeah, it's absolutely great. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, am I just going to be using the terminal from here on out? Since we were talking about the terminals. So yes. Yeah, that one's NeoVim. And then I moved to Mastodon nearly permanently. I vacated Twitter. I still have the accounts there, but I'm not interacting with it. But someone wrote a CLI for Mastodon called Toot. So,
nice.
Yeah. So now my social media is going to be all CLI. So I'll see where everything ends up.
If you can find one that'll also cross post to LinkedIn for me.
Oh yeah.
Then I'm down.
Then you're down, man.
Because I use this tool called Hootsuite to do all my social media stuff, but it costs money, and really all I use it for is the cross post stuff.
Cool.
So, and I'm too lazy to do the same thing multiple times.
Right.
And also I can schedule tweets, but
yes,
which is very handy. And also it recommends the best time to send based on your audience and stuff. So there's stuff like that.
When are they awake?
But if I could find something like that on command line, and they don't support Mastodon yet, then I would totally do this.
I think GitHub.
You're saying if there were to be a command line tool that could do that, could possibly be written in Java using picocli, and likely released using JReleaser.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Time to file an issue there.
I like that. And actually, right. I did have one question for you. So it strikes me that one very nice piece of what you have there is just the ability to do all the social media posting. Are you using third-party libraries to do that? Or is it something that you could spin off another project if you wanted to?
That's kind of the goal at first. With the first thing that I added was SDK support. And I wrote it in such a way that it could be just taken out from JReleaser and be used by anyone else. But as time passed by, I kind of like integrated more and more into the configuration model itself. Mm-hmm. And the only third-party messaging library that I'm using right now is Twitter for J, because I don't want to deal with the complexities of the Twitter API. Mm-hmm. Everything else is just plain REST APIs. Okay. And for making my life easier, I use OpenFein. It's a library that allows you to define REST APIs using interfaces and annotations.
FEIGN, right?
Yes. Okay. And Fein will create an HTTP proxy client on top of your interface, decorating everything. So you as a developer only deal with Java types. You don't deal with HTTP verbs and whatsoever. Nice. So that makes things very easy for me. In the past, I would have used OKHTTP. I don't, because version 4 brings in Kotlin, and I don't want Kotlin as part of a dependency for reasons. So Fein is just plain Java, and that's the thing that I use.
Okay. Nice.
Could I ask a question, Andres? As because I know a lot of the third-party apps for Twitter have been cut off, and that doesn't affect you, right? But I just thought I'd ask anyway. No, because we use the API directly, and the first one that will be in trouble in a sense that they might not be able to connect or talk to it will be Twitter for J. What has just been announced through a tweet today, Twitter support said that starting February 9th, access to the API will no longer be free. You have to you go to a basic paid tier, and there might be some others. I mean, is this going to stick? I don't know. But in 7 days, the access of the Twitter API may no longer be free. They have the power to do so. And so, leaving all the politics and out of it is the thing about Mastodon is all open APIs. Like that's integral to everything about it. So if you like that, kind of open idea, then, that's where Mastodon, but, not a lot of users there. And plus it's all server based by, whoever is able to run a particular server, but it is a Fediverse, it is federated. So that's kind of the nice thing about it.
Right. So going back to your question, Kito, most of the things are, again, written with Fein and just plain Java. There's no other language, no other thing. So just very basic dependencies. I think it might be possible to reuse what is the core SDK for each one of those announcers. They are completely separated from the JReleaser model. And they are on top of that, the model announcers. These are the ones that are aware about the JReleaser API itself. Okay. So technically speaking, you can use the SDKs directly and just talk to Mastodon, even if you're not using JReleaser, for example.
Gotcha. Good to know.
Yeah. And I'm changing as a developer every time we do these podcasts with them.
I know. I miss it now. I can't believe we went for a whole month.
I know. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're gonna have to start having you on like every several months or so, because you're like a cornucopia of knowledge.
That's right.
So thank you so much for being here, Andres. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me again. This has been a pleasure chatting with you, and hopefully the audience enjoys our rants and our banters.
I hope so.
Heck yeah.
I just have a few housekeeping notes here. Well, of course, there are other wonderful podcasts on our network. There's Offheap and Java Pubhouse. You can find them all at Pubhouse Network.
Who's on those ones anyway? Offheap
Pubhouse.net. I'm sorry. I can tell you because I always forget.
Or is Pubhouse just the umbrella, or is there an actual Pubhouse podcast?
Pubhouse is the umbrella. Yeah, it's Pubhouse.net.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But
watch out for that Freddie guy.
Yes, yeah, that's Freddie. Yes. So Freddie's on both of them. Josh is on off heap. Michael is on off heap, and Paul is on off heap.
Right.
And it's on Pub
They
House.
do like coding, I think, too, as well on their podcast.
Yeah, they do some of that stuff. Yes.
Yeah. I don't want to expose my poor development skills, so let's not do that.
All right. So let's just wrap up with events. I should mention also, if you want some great videos to look at of sessions, the JChampions Conf was in January. That was an all online conference with Java champions, and I had the pleasure of being on the selection board for that. Although we didn't pick my sessions, but that's okay. I'm not taking it personally. There were a lot of really great sessions on there. So
you did one on for Denver Java user group. And I don't know what it was about, but it's the picture of you with a drink of whiskey behind you. And I've never seen it yet, and I haven't. I've been telling myself I would surely like to watch this particular talk, but I'm like, it makes me thirsty. I go get myself a drink, and then I just forget that I'm supposed to watch it.
Nice. Yeah, the sketch is usually not far behind me. But not during the workday though. Their workdays.
That's right.
So anyways, go to YouTube or JChampionConf. I think jchampionconf.com, I believe. And there's lots of really great sessions about from a lot of Java champions. So you should check that out. So coming up April 4th through 6th, Dev Nexus. I will be there for the first time in a couple of years. Are you guys going to be there?
I will not.
Oh, too bad.
I'm not gonna make the trip this time.
Bummer.
Yeah.
All right. So that's
I have this thing that we were talking about with conferences. I love conferences, but I also have like a high demand for work where I actually get paid.
Yes.
I get paid a lot.
Yes.
I have like a higher net profit if I stick to my work rather than do I love my conferences.
Right.
Dev Nexus is very generous and a very wonderful conference, and you should all attend. There's that. But sometimes, work is in high demand, so I don't do as many conferences as I'd like to.
Yes, I totally understand. So Dev Nexus is in Atlanta, Georgia, US, April 4th through 6th. JCon Europe, I'm on the content board for this one.
Really? Wow.
Going to be June 20 to 23rd in Cologne, Germany. And the call for papers for that is open now, I think. I think it's open. It is open. So you should check that one out. You want to run through the NFJS ones?
Yeah, so we got a couple of No Fluff coming up here. March 31st, there's still time, Gateway Software Symposium in St. Louis. And then Pacific Northwest, which is Seattle. I'm going to go harass Freddie. I'll be at that one. Northwest Software Symposium, April 14th through 15th. Get your taxes done before that, and you ought to be just fine. And then anybody want to handle J Prime at?
So J Prime is in Sofia, Bulgaria, May 30th to 31st. I've never been to Bulgaria, but I hear it's a lovely place, according to Danno.
It is a wonderful place. And congratulations on the pronunciation.
Thank
Sofia. You. It is Sofia, not Sophia, but excellent.
Then you've got the Central Iowa Software Symposium.
That's in Iowa. That one's June 9th through 10th. Austin, July 14th through 15th. And then the big one, UberConf in Westminster, Colorado, next to Denver. July 18th through 21st. By the way, high altitude in July, not that hot. Actually feels really nice there. So wonderful place to be.
That's good to know. So are you going to be at UberConf, Danno?
I will be, yeah.
Okay. So this, I'll be at UberConf too. So that'll be the other in-person one. I'll do this spring probably. So.
All right.
All right, so I think we've come to the end of another long-winded episode of our podcast. If you stuck with us for the whole time, thank you. Appreciate it.
This is a great one because I can't wait to use these CLI tools.
I know. I'm
totally awesome.
There's a lot of great content here. So
yeah.
Andres,
I'm going to go back to my Linux machine and install. There's something called Xmonad, which is no desktop environment whatsoever. And it's just all CLI. Like, let's just, I'm just going to just dive right in.
Go on.
Absolutely great. One of my dreams is like, I don't wish this on anyone, but if any government tries to confiscate my laptop, good luck. Like Xmonad, you have to do like, I think Control Enter or like some weird kind of like thing just to log into your shell. It's just, you bring it up and it's a blank screen. And like that is enough obfuscation just to throw any kind of government off. I mean, just there's a lot of value in that. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent.
All right. Well, we will be back again in roughly a month or so with a couple other wonderful guests, and hopefully I'll be able to talk better at that point in time. So
yeah, no problem. You sound good though.
Thank you very much.
All the best of health to you. Yeah.
So I will quickly pass out after this the whole thing. So
all right. Take care though.
All right. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thanks everybody. Thanks Andres.
Goodbye, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye. Whoops, wrong button. Where's this?
Yeah, there we go. Oops.